You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.
Hello, hello, hello out there in podcast land. You have reached Johnny Has the Keys, the podcast of horror and science fiction films and those key elements that lift them above the standard genre fare. I am here with my good friend, David Horton. Hello, David.
Hello, how are you, Tim?
I'm doing fantastic.
Really? Fantastic.
I am fantastic. Let's say it with a French accent. That's very appropriate for today's show. So,
of course, yes.
Yeah. Okay. What's been going on in your world this week?
Just the typical. Nothing really great or phenomenal. I've been trying to catch up on some old stuff. I've been watching some older television things, meaning I actually caught some Next Generation on Star Trek Next Generation, and I actually caught a Lost in Space episode because I hate Lost in Space, but I decided, hey, I'm going to watch this and try to see if this helps
eat your oatmeal.
Appreciate. Yes, eat your spinach or whatever. No, it didn't change my opinion at all. I still didn't like it. So I had to go back and then rewatch a couple of good episodes of Next Generation and good episodes of Classic Trek just to feel better.
Okay.
So yeah, but nothing new or great on the sci-fi horizon, really. So what about you? What have you been doing?
I'm all over the board. First, I need to do a redaction, I think is the appropriate word. I had mentioned a few podcast episodes back about all the Walking Dead news and the Talking Dead and the Fear of the Walking Dead and the Daryl and Carol spinoff and stuff. And I said that I kind of liked Walking Dead World Beyond, but I am off that boat.
That's the one with the kids?
It is. And I'm kind of approaching it, I guess, like you approached that Lost in Space episode. I'm like, why am I watching this? This is really bad. I mean, there's some good makeup and some cool, special effects and there are some scares, but I just don't give a shit about any of these characters. And I know they're not going to die, and that makes it even worse. So I'm just like, ugh. They did a 10-season episode. I mean, a 10-episode season, and it's like the end. And I think they've already got season 2 on the books, but I'm wondering, I'm like, you know what, guys, you could pull the plug on this and just put that money into one of your other shows. But I don't know. We'll see. So that's one thing.
Yeah, go ahead. Keep going.
The other thing was, and this is appropriate to the podcast. I've been watching old Peter Lorre movies. I revisited one from my childhood that used to terrify me as a kid called The Beast with Five Fingers, which is about a man that dies and everyone's fighting over his inheritance. And he was a pianist, and he only had one good hand, and he could play though with the one hand. And all of a sudden this hand starts haunting people and coming after them. There's even a scene where Peter Lorre, I think it's Peter Lorre, throws it into the fire and it comes crawling out of the fire. I mean, I remember all this shit from when I was a kid. But that being said, it wasn't as good as the other Peter Lorre hand movie that I watched called Mad Love, which is a remake of it's a 1935 remake of a silent film called The Hands of Orlac. And that is the one where he is this controversial surgeon that a woman concert pianist husband is mangled in a train accident, and he's going to lose his hands. And she has this doctor who is in love with her, by the way, attach the hands of a recently executed murderer onto her husband's body. and all of a sudden these hands have like a life of their own, and he thinks they're his hands because they're scarred from the accident. He doesn't realize they're not his hands, and all of a sudden he's, you know, he can throw knives really good and stuff. It's great. It is a great movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, which was a shoe-in for me to watch it. And I was like, I've got to see this. So 2 highly regarded Peter Lorre movies. And I've never seen M. I want to see that. So I'm kind of on a Peter Lorre
You've never
kick.
seen M?
No.
M's good.
And that's Fritz Lang. So,
yep.
And then lastly, I finally immersed myself into the first season of The Mandalorian, and I love it. I think it's great. I think it is probably the best Star Wars since the original 3.
Agreed. Totally agree. It is brilliant. It is Star Wars done right, which is that subtle underneath and sometimes not so subtle Western motif. Put on top of all these sci-fi trappings, and it's really well done.
It is, and they even add the even though I love the Baby Yoda character, because I love when he like does something really strenuous and then just blacks out. That's hilarious to me. But it's got just a little degree of that cuteness from, like, you know, Return of the Jedi. So I can deal with it. I think that Jon Favreau is a genius as far as the way he envisioned this and brought it back. It's small, but doesn't look small. So you can tell that he probably didn't have a lot of money, because he keeps having the same characters show up again, like Carl Withers and that kind of thing. But I think I'm really, really impressed with it.
But the special effects are phenomenal. They're using that new tech with the parallax view set, which works so well. The production design is very in keeping with Star Wars and works, even down to the alien makeup and everything.
It looks
really.
It looks like Star Wars aliens from the first film.
Yeah, and really recommend you watch the documentaries. There's a series of making of documentaries of the first season that are wonderful.
Are they on Disney Plus too?
Yes. It's basically Favreau and like all 5 of the directors sitting around, and they're all talking about each other's episodes. And, you know, the directors are really good. You know, Bryce Dallas Howard her episode is awesome. And I've heard her one in season 2 is even better. Haven't seen it yet.
The one I watched last night that knocked my socks off was number 8, the one where it's almost an hour long, and most of them are half an hour long. But
is that the one where they're trapped in the cantina? And the TIE fighter land,
and the nurse robot comes back and kicks ass with that baby in a backpack on it. It's just blowing stormtroopers away left and right. I was like, whoa. I thought that was an excellent episode. And Dennis was outside and he was like wanting me to come look at something, and I'm like, I can't leave. Baby
Yoda's gonna do something. But
and when Baby Yoda pushes that fire back, he's like, ooh, and then he just goes backwards. It just cracks me up. But all right, there is one thing I want to get straight. The events in this series take place after all the movies, right?
They take place after the original trilogy. So they're before Kylo Ren and the New Republic and all that. They're after the destruction of the second Death Star.
Well, I knew that the Imperials were pretty much history, but that there was probably like some covert operations going on. But my question is that is not Yoda, though. That is just his species, because the real Yoda is old and dead.
Correct.
If
he
it's
passed
after,
away in The Empire Strikes Back. Yeah.
That's what I figured.
Yeah, it's not. This is not prequel where this is Baby Yoda who's.
I was going to say
it's not really Baby Yoda, but
that's what Dennis was asking me. He was like, "Is that?" I was like, "No, I think Yoda's dead. I think that's just another type of Yoda, and everyone's calling him Yoda."
Yeah, well, and that's just marketing, because in the series he's actually called the Child. That's all they've called him so far.
You're right.
They've never referred to him as any proper name, never referred to him as anything else, not even his species.
Mm-hmm.
You know. But I like the Mandalorian mythos they've given it. I think that's really good. I love the production design as far as I like the music. The theme song is good because it's just funky enough to kind of be Star Warsy, but still dramatic and cool.
Well, and in that 8th episode, it got really funky. There was parts of it that almost sounded like John Carpenter. I was like, this doesn't sound very Star Wars at all.
Mm-hmm.
But most of it, the main theme is great. It almost reminds me of 70s television. Dun, 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 it's very dramatic.
And I love the closing credits that are just the sketches of the episode itself. Love those. I thought that reminded me of old 60s television when they would show, like Star Trek, classic Star Trek would show scenes from other episodes as part of the credits.
Right. Kind of or the Wild Wild West. Yeah.
So it's really good. Like I said, I love probably my favorite episode. Well, I really like the little dude, the little engineer dude. I think that was a great character.
Keel.
Yeah. But I also like
Quill. I think his name was Quill.
Quill. Yeah. I also like the Bryce Howard episode, which is the one with the AT-AT in the woods. The whole villagers are afraid of the creature that comes in, and that's where they meet the girl, the wrestler girl, big.
It's the one with the walker.
Yeah, with the walker that comes in, and it's I like the way she directed that. I thought it was a really good, strong character episode. You got to see a lot of him, and him relating to the child and relating to her as well. It was really good. Good episode.
Yeah, Dennis was there was actually two things. I've lost my train of thought. One was he saw the flashback scene where all the Mandalorians' armor looked a little bit different and they were all flying around on those jetpacks. And he was like, well, that's cool. Where's his jetpack? I'm like, he doesn't have one yet. And then like 20 minutes later, he got it. And I was like, yes. It's awesome because it is so cool when they are flying around in those things. Those things. I know what I was going to say. The other thing I was going to say was, isn't it kind of cool that Star Trek and Star Wars seem to have gone off the rails as far as movies, but they seem to be gaining momentum as far as television. I mean, I've not watched any of the Trek television show, but I mean, some of that stuff's doing well, right? I mean, the Picard show did.
Picard went well. I mean, as far as it kind of restored fan base after Discovery. There's still people that like Discovery. I don't know why. There are people that like the Lower Decks, the animated one. But I think it's because, again, there's subtle tie-ins of seasonal arc, but it's mostly episodic television. And I think you can't really do that in the big films. They try to make them all and big blockbuster and most important to everybody every single time. Whereas you can do a lot more subtlety and a lot more cool stuff if it's week to week to week.
Agreed.
Kind of thing. And I think they're learning that and doing better with that. Hopefully the new one, Strange New Worlds, which is the one that's going to be about Pike and number 1 and the early Enterprise adventures will be good as well, hopefully. So we'll see. Because adventure is important to our lives, like our story we're doing today.
Whether it be in the air or under the water.
Yes. So those of you who are listening to us and have listened this far, hey, thanks. And this episode, we're doing a classic science fiction film based on a classic science fiction novel called 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I sometimes in my youth used to say Beneath the Sea, and that was incorrect. It is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It was, the movie came out in 1954. It is a Disney film, so naturally Tim has to like it. because
That's not
you
true.
have to like
I hate
Walt
Pocahontas.
Disney. What? What? The Color of the Wind?
Oh no, that movie sucks, and it doesn't have talking animals in it.
Oh, that's right. It doesn't, does it? At least
Nah.
the raccoon should have said.
Now, and Mel Gibson's in it.
Oh well. See, now you've really gone over.
I mean, I liked Mel Gibson for a time, but it's kind of hard to get past him now.
Yeah. Post Braveheart, you kind of have to go, okay, no more Mel, sort of thing.
Post his crazy outburst.
Yes.
Yeah. His
But
problems
this is a synopsis just to get us started, and then we can go from there. This is basically the story of three people. You have Professor Pierre Aronnax, his manservant or colleague Conseil, and Ned Land are all on an adventure or a quest or a mission to try to explain why all of these sailing ships have been disappearing. And there's rumors of a sea monster, and there's rumors of another country attacking, but no one knows. And they end up crossing paths with a strange evil genius named Captain Nemo, who has a submarine. And they're taken aboard. They get to see the sea, under the sea, for 20,000 leagues. And then at the end, there's a tragic ending where they all have to decide, are we going to, are we really being captured by Nemo or not? And do we need to escape? Do we need to leave? And all of that. And there's a tragic end for the captain and the Nautilus ship itself. Do you remember the first time you ever saw this movie?
No, I don't. I'm sure that I probably saw it on like The Wonderful World of Disney as a kid on television. And I think it actually was the first 2-hour premiere. I think I read that, because that show was only an hour, and I think they actually extended it to 2 hours when they had that movie on it. I think I read that. I may be crazy.
Well, for me, this was the epitome of Saturday morning, Saturday matinee. I went and saw this at the Princess Theater on a re-release on a Saturday, and on the big screen and everything else, and all the color, and and I was in love. Of course, I'd read the book when I saw the movie, so I'd already liked the book, which is actually basically a book version of a serialized story.
Well, I was going to say, which version did you read, and was it after 1962?
I'm sure it was after 60.
Okay, because for about 100 years there was a bad translation going around that omitted about a third of it, and a lot of it was mistranslated until 1962, when there was an edition that Ray Bradbury did the introductory for, or the introduction.
Well, and I've got a huge key for this, which is this is to me similar, has a lot of similarities or to Dracula, because Bram Stoker wrote Dracula as a travel log. Essentially, that's what he wanted it to be. It was this going from Romania to England and across the Carpathians and everywhere else, and yada, yada.
I believe it's called epistolatory storytelling, where it's done in journal entries or letters.
Right, and that's the way he kind of looked at it, as a series of letters, a series of travelogues, everything else, because that's what he had been doing, on his day job to get money forever. And Verne actually wrote this in a serialized format as well, and intended it to be we are going, we are literally going around the world under the sea, sort of thing, 20,000 leagues. And it was distributed monthly, I believe, as a serialized story when it was originally done. And then, after the 60s, you're right, they did do a novelization of it that kind of corrected a lot of mistakes and cut out a lot of the.
It was more faithful translation, because the somebody evidently butchered it in the 1870s. I think it was 1873.
Right.
So,
but for me,
I was looking at it. It's called epistolary, and books like Dracula are the first one that come up, and apparently the color purple was done that way too.
Yeah. Well, I could see that. I mean, it's a series of journal entries. This one actually isn't totally journal entries, but it is narrated by Aronnax. I mean, it opened up a whole world for me. I was going, okay, this is the best Disney movie I have ever seen in my life. It was color. It was awesome. I thought at the time, wow, this is going to be something they're going to do. They're going to take classic literature and they're going to tell literature on film. That's going to be their deal.
They did a little bit. They did Treasure Island too, didn't they? I think they did.
Yeah. And Jungle Book, was a classic story and all that. And they start them with the book opening. I was going, oh yeah, this is great. But did you like it the first time you saw it? Wild World of Sports or whatever?
I like this movie more for nostalgic reasons than I do for the movie itself. I think it's a beautiful movie. The color is amazing. And the special effects at the time were just state of the art. And it has a great cast. But I don't think it's a great script. I think it draws a little bit. It is that the right word? Draws a little bit. It's just a little slow in places. And I'm not crazy about Aronnax, that actor. That played him.
Well, to be honest, he's not great in the novel either. He's more of a milk toasty sort of wishy-washy.
In all honesty,
come on.
Yeah, he is. He is that. But I'm not crazy about Kirk Douglas either. I could tell he was like swinging his weight around to get things his way in this movie too.
Yeah. I mean, from a production angle, yes, he definitely changed Ned Land from the novel a lot. Yeah.
So, but I mean, like I said, I appreciate it for what it is and what it was at the time. But it's not a movie I would sit down and watch again anytime soon.
Really? Okay.
No. Even though I like the giant squid.
Oh yeah, I like squid. I mean, I think you hit on a lot of the good things. I really do, even though I'm not a Kirk Douglas fan, I'm especially not a Kirk Douglas as Ned Land fan. That bravado and that stupid kind of comic relief that he and Lorre get into, I'm not a big fan of. But I've always loved Nemo and thought Nemo was a great character. And also I like James Mason playing Nemo.
He's fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I like the story. The overall, I guess, story of ships are being destroyed. Go find out, oh my God, there's this strange technology that is doing it, that's creating it. And then get into this whole ecological thing of there's an entire world that you're untapped that you don't know about under the ocean. And if we could just harness it, we could all live in peace and harmony, but we can't because we fight with each other because we're human. And we're territorial and we fight and it ultimately ends in tragedy.
Well, and that's a big trope in sci-fi too. I mean, it doesn't have to be the ocean, it's in outer space as well.
Well, that's what I was going to get to. I think that's, the biggest keys come from these are traditional science fiction story points. I do agree with you that I think if it was going to be remade or rewritten today, maybe cut a lot more of the Ned's perspective and give a lot more of the professor's perspective, of his slow change from, oh my God, this guy's a madman to, wow, he may be right, to, oh my God, this guy really is a madman, But see that happen to him more than Ned going, I got to get out of here. Let's get drunk. Hey, let me rub your head. You're a little short guy, kind of stuff.
I did feel like there were times where Peter Lorre was kind of phoning it in too, because by that time he had already played that role several times.
Yes. I find it very interesting that there are no females in this movie. It's essentially a non-female.
Oh, so it's like The Thing. That's funny.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I didn't have that key, but I do now. That was going to be my key. Yeah, The Thing. Yeah, sure.
I also have a theory, and you may be able to elaborate on this. I don't know. I think some of the problem was the writer himself. Richard Fleischer, is that how you say it, Fleischer? Fleischer directed it. We know him from another submarine movie we did last season, Fantastic Voyage.
Yeah.
And he has done a lot of big movies. I mean, he did like Soylent Green, Tora, Dr. Dolittle, The Jazz Singer remake, but he also did a lot of schlocky movies like Amityville 3D, Conan the Destroyer. Anyway, he was good friends with Earl Fenton, the guy that wrote this movie. And Earl wrote a lot of movies with him. Earl has done hardly anything. If you look at his resume, it is not great. And I'm like, why did he always work with this guy? I think the script could have been better.
Could have been, but I also think Fleischer liked working with a writer who could like tailor what he wants. That's why I think his schlock pieces are almost always sequels, because he's just kind of like doing what somebody else did, and it's not his vision, so he don't really care about it. Blah blah blah. You know, that sort of thing.
Okay,
is my opinion.
No, that makes sense. That does make sense.
So I think Felton, because they did change stuff. They did make Ned Land's part a lot bigger in the movie. They did change the whole thing from, you know, of course, Verne did not imagine at all nuclear power. So they gave it nuclear power because
that had just happened.
And, and we're afraid of that. So we're going to, you know, power it with that. But I think as an adaptation of a novel, it actually is really pretty good.
Okay. Well, I've not read the novel, so I wouldn't know. Right.
I mean, I don't think it's on par with, like, you know, Serling's adapt of Planet, because I think
well, he totally changed that though.
Yeah. But I mean, I get where you're coming from about the excitement really lags in the middle. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a middle section that gets really pretty boring.
Well, and here's another theory I have for why the movie seems, I don't know, somewhat disjointed, is that you've got this lackluster screenplay writer. You've got this star in Kirk Douglas that's saying, we have to do this. I have to have 2 women on my arms when I come in. Then you've also got Disney saying, this is a Disney movie. Put a seal in it. Make it funny. That kind of, you know, make it cute. So, I mean, you can see all these elements and you're like, I don't think that was in the book. I don't think that was in the book either. That's Disney. That's Kirk Douglas. You know what I'm saying?
Right. But for me, it's saved by the fact that Fleischer kept the sci-fi elements that make it so good. Like, you know, them exploring you know, when because they essentially, you know, Nemo attacks their ship and they survive and they climb aboard this metal thing that's floating in the middle of the ocean, because
that was scary.
Warships weren't metal, and it's foggy and they don't know what's up, and they climb aboard and the thing is deserted, and they're looking around everywhere and they find the big huge opening, you know, the big huge picture window, and watch a burial on the bottom of the ocean. That was pretty incredible. And Fleischer said, no, I'm not doing this with cartoons. I'm not doing this with, you know, any other, you know, land, force perspective, force underwater things. I want to be underwater, you know, and they really were. A lot of those scenes are literally underwater, and they work for me. I love that. I love the design of the big, huge helmets. I like the fact that they have to be pulled up into the ship. I just, you know, a huge key from this is steampunk. This is a steampunk vessel, and design elements, from a huge pipe organ in the middle of the submarine and everything. It's just,
I know that is crazy. I mean, I love it, but it is crazy how it looks like, you know, a house inside a submarine.
Well, it's that keeping with the Victorian era, you know, kind of feel to it, which really works for me. Plus the fact of the whole ecological man will never be able to overcome his, you know, his innate warlike tendencies that Nemo feels, even though I'm warlike. You know, I love Nemo's conflict of him going, we should all live in peace. Unless you're bad, then you should die. I'm going to have to,
Now
I'm
eat your
sorry,
seaweed.
Professor. Sorry, Professor. We're going to have to punish you by putting you on the hull of the ship. The electrified hull naturally is not in the novel. And so it did not work for me with the dancing natives. Yeah.
The natives are restless.
Sort of bit.
They're headhunters.
But
that's a Disney element to me. When they go to Headhunter Island, is a Disney element.
Well, and the music there is absolutely horrible. I watched it twice just to look at it again because they're accenting like all the little hits. Like when he splashes, he goes, and he gets on the boat. It's very Disney, Swiss Family Robinson music. And I'm like going, that doesn't work.
See, I like Swiss Family Robinson.
I like the movie. I'm not a big fan of the music. So I think, again, it looks awesome. And I think if you watch it without the music, it might even be a little bit better. I don't think Fleischer really contributed that music part of it.
Yeah.
Dennis
Dennis actually watched this with me. It was because it was a Disney movie. Yeah. And he was like, this is slow.
Oh my gosh.
But at one point he was like, I was like, uh-oh, headhunters. And he's going, they're going to get away or whatever. And they get out in the boat. And then all of a sudden, man, just like hundreds of boats. It's like every person that lives on that island is in a boat and going after them.
We all want to go to Hawaii to film this scene. Let's go. Yeah.
That was hilarious.
Yeah. Well, normally we do casting. Is there?
I've got some casting notes.
Okay.
Not a lot. Ned Land was always Kirk Douglas, who is known for Spartacus and Lust for Life, and more so probably for being the father of Michael Douglas. The only this is actually Captain Nemo. Captain Nemo was James Mason, known for Lolita and A Star is Born and North by Northwest, as well as the television miniseries of Salem's Lot. Had to get that one in there. From 1979, I think. Anyway,
it's mostly his voice.
There was another English actor considered for that role. It was Ralph Richardson, but apparently he couldn't do it, and they ended up getting Mason instead. I like Mason a lot.
Had he been around then? It would have been cool in this had he been around then. Christopher Lee, I think, would have made an incredible Captain Nemo.
Oh yeah, he would have been very good, actually. And he was around then. I mean, he can't. Well, I mean, he was doing Hammer films in '57, so it wasn't that far.
Yeah.
Back to James Mason, though. One thing I wanted to say that I found out just doing a little research, because I don't know a lot about him, is that he was known for being in A Star is Born, the remake, and apparently he mentored someone in real life very similar to A Star is Born. It's not a love story because it was a guy, but do you know who it is?
Nope.
Sam Neill. I had no idea. And now that I see Sam Neill, I see James Mason in him. I'm like, oh, that's where he learned that stuff.
Yeah, I could see that. I really could see that. That's interesting. I did not know that either.
I didn't either.
Good trivia there.
Yeah, it was good find. Just accidentally. Professor Aronnax, the guy I don't like, is Paul Lukas, and I've got in caps. He old. The only thing I could find were old movies with him and one with Betty Davis. Charles Boyer was considered for the role, but he had to turn it down for prior commitments. And I think he could have brought a little more personality to that role.
Yes, I would agree.
Because he was a little, he had a flair for comedy.
And he might have brought a little bit more clout to kind of offset Douglas too. Yeah,
true.
That would have been interesting.
And I also read, I don't know if I have this in my trivia, but I read that Lukas was very standoffish with the rest of the cast. And someone speculated, I'm not sure who, that he was having trouble remembering his lines and was embarrassed because of his age. So maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know.
Okay.
Conseil, is that how you say it? Conseil?
Conseil.
Conseil is Peter Lorre. We know him from a lot of films, including Casablanca, The Maltese Falcon, Arsenic and Old Lace, Mad Love, and The Beast with Five Fingers, which I just mentioned. And then really that's all I have on cast, because there's no one else that's a large role in this movie. Those are the four, basically.
Yeah, those are basically the four. I mean, that's why, I think I've mentioned on prior podcasts, I've been trying to find a good adaptation of this that could be done theatrically. And mostly because, it would be cool because it has a 4-person cast as far as dialogue goes, except for maybe the introduction where they first, find Ned and they first get the commission to go on the boat and all of that. But this story would be nothing without the sci-fi spectacle that comes with it.
Yeah, you couldn't just have a tentacle go by a window. That's what Disney did on the ride, and it was terrible.
Right. But so I haven't found one that I think is appropriate or even convincing enough for theatrical use.
You could make it a musical.
But no. But I do love the fact that Disney
Captain Nemo.
I do like the fact that Disney had the faith in the story and let them tell it. For a while, this was the most expensive movie ever made. Because at the time in '54, it cost $9 million. That's how much Star Wars cost in '75.
Right. I like that Disney was behind it. Walt Disney even visited the set when they were filming the squid sequence, and it was his idea to suggest a storm because Fleischer was worried about seeing the mechanics of the squid, and he said, do a storm, do it in a storm, hide it. So it worked.
And I think that would have worked in the ride, since you mentioned the ride. Had there been the storm and something more, better as part of that, I think it would have worked better.
They could redo that ride now and make it work, but that was a clunky ride because you were actually underwater, and it was not ADA compliant. It took forever to load and get off. The line was forever. It was just a bad concept.
Well, from Imagineering, it was basically, hey, we've got a trolley ride. Let's put it underwater. I've heard the revamp is a little bit better that they've done. They've done some new optical effects. They've changed the design of the actual ship, so it's easier.
Are you talking about Paris?
Yeah.
Okay, because I've not ridden the new one at all. I did ride the old one several times, though.
Yeah, and the Tokyo Disney Sea, instead of the castle at the center, it's a volcano. Well, when you go into the volcano, which you can, the interior of it is Nemo's island.
Oh, that's really cool.
The Nautilus is there, and all of his technology there. Everything is very steampunk. It's awesome. And there's another.
Is it a model or is it full scale?
No, it's full scale.
Wow.
And there's a restaurant that's out over the center of the water because the whole interior of the volcano is water. The caldera is water, and so there's a restaurant that's out over the edge of the water, and you can look down and see the Nautilus, and every now and then things will bubble up or there'll be big spews of geyser water. I mean, it's really cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
And I thought that was very imaginative. If you're doing a park about the 7 oceans, then one of them should be 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. You should have some element of it, which works for me.
Well, and it being French too.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Which is international, so to speak, whatever. Did you like, you said you thought it was slow in places. Did you like, though, the overall Nemo story, or the whatever, this mad genius who develops this incredible craft, but then uses it only for vengeance? And doesn't have,
I do like that.
yeah, and doesn't really have a change of heart. He doesn't change by the end of it.
No, I mean it's an element of it's an element of the novel, I'm sure, but it's also it's like you said earlier, it's a trope that we're that we're familiar with in both these genres, horror and sci-fi.
Yeah.
It's a mad scientist trope in a way. So,
definitely, that's a key that I think is all the way through it. You know. What else do I have in my notes?
I've got Oscars or awards.
Oh yeah, let's do awards.
It was an Oscar winner for art direction, which is no surprise. Special effects also.
Yeah.
It was nominated for editing, but no, it didn't win.
Well, I wonder if by art direction it means like production design too, because the production design was done by a guy. I looked him up because I really like him. His name is Harper Goff, Goff, and he not only did Fantastic Voyage along with 20,000 Leagues, but he also did Willy Wonka.
Oh wow! And
all three of those have incredible production design.
They do.
So I'm going, okay, this guy's really good.
That may be a euphemism or an alternate term for production design. I've noticed when I do these awards that sometimes they say different things at different times. Like sometimes it'll say writing, sometimes it'll say screenplay, sometimes it'll say film, sometimes it'll say, movie or whatever. So maybe art direction is just a different, what they called it at the time instead of production design.
I think it probably was because it deserved it if it won the Oscar for it, because it definitely deserved it.
No, I mean, it's a beautiful movie. Like I said, that's not the qualm I have with it. It's a gorgeous movie. And then I don't have much else. The Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror gave it the best DVD release when it came back out on DVD. And it's not on the 1001 list that we used to have films on. No, sorry.
How could it not be? People have to. This is great science fiction. This is good stuff. Okay, fine.
Reanimator wasn't on there either, so.
Well, yeah, but I can understand that. Well, okay. So what about keys? What keys do you have for this?
Oh, I do have one thing of trivia I was going to tell you is that this, this production was so big, they actually also filmed on lots of 20th Century Fox and Universal.
Had to be that big.
Yeah.
I know they made a mock-up of the actual Nautilus. So those shots, like when they're with the cannibals and they're rowing out to the boat and everything else, it's real. It's really out in the middle of the ocean.
Crazy.
And that's great. And I don't have a lot of trivia about it either.
I don't. I was going to go into the ride a little bit, but that is technically a key. So if we're headed toward keys, then
well, we shouldn't jump to keys yet until we talk about the squid attack, which is also a
sure. Yeah, that's a major scene. Oh, and Dennis, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Dennis wants to know why they wear big clunky boots instead of fins. Or
underwater.
Yeah.
Because they're in bath escapes. They're in these. If they didn't, they would float to the top, and they don't want to float to the top. They want to sink to the bottom. So those are weighted boots.
I figured it was for movie purposes to keep them from floating.
Well, same thing. It's like old school divers who use diving bells. The gold round helmet they always used to have with the little visor kind of thing. They always wore weighted belts with lead and lead boots so that it would pull them to the bottom. And so they could walk along the bottom and do the work.
And the sharks could eat them.
The sharks could eat them, yes. Or they could stumble and fall because, they have to like lean forward and then walk. You can see them several times going, whoa, this is weird. So, yeah.
Other than the squid, which we can get to, I guess one of my favorite sets was probably Nemo's Island. when they come up inside the crater and all the
Yeah.
machinery is
And
there and
I
stuff.
love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that whole thing, like I said, that's Tokyo Disney Sea on the inside. They recreated all of that.
Cool.
Awesome. But
So squids.
The squid, the squid was designed by somebody that we've already mentioned before.
It's not Harryhausen.
No, Jaws.
Who designed it? Oh, Goff.
No.
I misunderstood you. I thought you said Jaws, and I was going to say, who designed
say Jaws.
Bruce that designed?
Correct. Same designer.
Oh.
Yeah.
So Goff. Okay.
No, Goff was the production designer. The what would now I blanked on his name. It's not in my notes. What is it? Oh no.
And it's the same guy that made Bruce?
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's funny. I heard you right the first time, and then I thought I misheard you. But okay, never mind.
Nope.
I did not know that. Oh yeah, I do. Actually, I do remember us talking in that 2-hour episode about that. I seem to remember that now.
I'm trying to remember what was his name though. Now it's killing me.
Well, it's not
they
Verne.
did shoot it. No.
Verne was the editor, right? Wasn't her
yes.
name Verne?
Yep.
And it wasn't Richard Zanuck. And it wasn't Gottlieb. I'm remembering all these other names from Jaws.
Right. It wasn't Carlo Rambaldi, you know.
No, and it wasn't Peter Benchley.
I'm totally blank on it. I'll have to look it up.
All right, you can look it up, and I'll go on to Keys. Or no, well, actually, we should probably talk a little bit about it. Did you want to talk a little bit about the squid? I thought that the eye was really cool when it was swimming and it glowed.
Yeah,
that was really cool. I liked that when they were out hacking at it on it kind of blew my mind how they would always just get out and run around on top of this sub. I was like, that is not safe. Stop that. But they're out there beating that squid and you can see its beak biting at them. They call that a beak, or at least that's what I read.
Yep, it is a beak. Yep,
and I liked that it yanked Nemo underwater and brave heroic Kirk Douglas dives in and cuts the tentacle off and rescues him, which would have never happened. That squid would have been long gone.
Maybe, yeah.
So, but it's a very memorable scene. It's one of those scenes I'm kind of surprised. You know how they always show the shots of scenes you remember when they do montages at the Academy Awards? I'm kind of surprised you don't see clips from that squid battle because it's pretty epic.
True. That's a good point. It is very, it is very cinematic too.
It's very Charlton Heston parting the sea. Yeah, that kind of thing. It's something you would think you would see over and over when you watch the Oscars, but they don't really do much with this movie that way.
Yeah.
Maybe it's got something to do with Disney. Maybe Oscar and Disney don't get along. I don't know.
Not letting them have it. Yeah.
No, I was talking about maybe Oscars don't like Disney. I wasn't saying the other way around.
Okay. Yep.
Could be. It could be political. No, there's no politics in Hollywood. What am I talking about?
No, never.
My biggest, I would say 50% or more of my keys are literary more so than film. A big one, of course, is Moby Dick. The Nemo character, very, very similar to Ahab in Moby Dick.
Yep.
Obsessed with his own plan. But as far as literary influences, I got really curious because I get these three confused. So I color coded them out here to kind of separate when they were. Jules Verne was 1828 to 1905.
Mm-hmm.
H.G. Wells was 1866 to 1946. So he
Mm-hmm.
overlapped a little.
Yeah.
Edgar Rice Burroughs was 1875 to 1950. So they came in that order, and they all overlap. So they did exist at the same time. All three of them, actually, now that I look at it. The thing that I love and appreciate about this movie more than anything is that it reminds me of the other movies like this that I loved as a kid, most of which are written by those three writers. One is the unofficial hashtag official sequel to this movie, which is Mysterious Island.
Mysterious Island. That's on my list. Yep.
And it's also written by Jules Verne. It came in the 60s and 1961, I believe. And it featured Harryhausen, who we mentioned earlier, doing, and it also had Bernard Herrmann, if I'm not mistaken, doing the music.
Yep.
So I think that maybe should be on our list because I haven't seen it since I was a kid.
Yeah. Love that movie.
And then he also did Journey to the Center of the Earth, which was also made into a film and is also by Jules Verne.
Yep.
H.G. Wells, of all of his movies, the movie that I would associate this movie with more than any would probably be The Time Machine. I think there's elements of it that are very similar. And then Edgar Rice Burroughs did movies. Unfortunately, he got the short end of the stick with production because Irwin Allen got a hold of some of his stuff, and he did The Land That Time Forgot and The People That Time Forgot, which I loved when I was a kid, but I have a feeling if I watched it now, it would bore the shit out of me.
Yeah, probably.
As well as At the Earth's Core.
But again, a submarine going to a mysterious island. There you go.
Yeah. Mysterious Island could definitely be on our list. And I think maybe even Journey to the Center of the Earth. Time Machine, too. The only other one I wrote down we've already mentioned as far as adventure that this movie reminds me of is Swiss Family Robinson. And that was not any of those writers, but it does have a little bit of a flair for Swiss Family Robinson in places.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that.
So I've been rambling on. You go.
I definitely think H.G. Wells was influenced by Verne, and vice versa, I think a little bit. I also, literary-wise, one of my keys was the Odyssey, Homer's The Odyssey, because supposedly Verne actually took Nemo's name from a translation in the Odyssey, which means no man.
Okay.
And a guy who's wandering the earth, which is what Nemo was doing. He had not set foot on land in like 20 years or something, or 10 years or something. Nautilus also has its roots because the name itself was based on Robert Fulton's submarine. The very first submarine was the Nautilus. And so that's why they took that.
Did it have anything to do with Argonauts as well? Because it sounds like it could be derived from that, and that's Greek mythology.
Yeah. So it's that whole feel to it. I think there's a lot of classic literature kind of tied into this and woven into this, which, like you said, is why the tropes are there, you know, of the mad scientist and the
humanity prevailing, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yep. Let's see.
I've got another. It's not. I guess you could say it's a literary key, but it's more of a movie key for me. Is that organ is the Phantom of the Opera? I mean, when he's playing that organ, I'm like, whoa, that's the Phantom of the Opera, and he even has a mirror, so he can see himself.
Very much so. Yeah.
And this is a loose leaf key. I don't know if you know, but they took that organ and put it into the haunted house at Disneyland, and then it was recreated for the other haunted houses. So that organ is in the ballroom in the haunted.
Makes sense. That makes sense. That's good. And of course, I've got all, you know, we can talk about the ride in a second, but we've got all of the, to me, all the underwater movies were influenced by this underwater movie. Instead of doing what they had done in the past, which is anything from blowing bubbles in front of a camera to putting weird filters in front of a camera or weird lighting to make people feel like they're underwater. This one really was underwater, which led to stuff like The Abyss, Jaws, you know, all the movies that actually were filmed underwater are on water.
Right. You had mentioned earlier that you used to confuse the word under with beneath. And I was thinking it might be because of that 60s, those other movies and television shows like Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea or something the City Beneath the Sea and whatever there was one there was a television series too. Erwin Allen
Beneath the Planet of the Apes, you know.
No, the one that Erwin Allen did. You know what I'm talking about. You mentioned it.
2 movies. Yep.
You mentioned it in a past podcast. I can't think of the name of it, but it was a weekly series. So, if you want to talk a little bit about the rides, I did some research because I've only been to Disneyland once. I've been to Disney World a million times, and Disney World, I actually went when it opened in '71. That ride was original to the Disney World park. It was not original to the Disneyland park. And that kind of confused me. And I went and did some research, and Disneyland opened in I've got this somewhere. Disneyland opened in 55.
Okay.
In 59, they opened a submarine ride, but it was not 20,000 Leagues. It was the same ride that became 20,000 Leagues in Florida, but in California, it was just a yellow submarine ride that just went around and you saw stuff underwater. It had nothing to do with 20,000 Leagues, which I thought was
right.
Kind of
they refitted that ride to be 20,000 Leagues
in Florida. And then, and eventually, I guess, in Paris and Tokyo, but and I'm hoping the ones overseas are better because, like I said, they closed that thing down. They turned the one into California into a Nemo ride, and they just cemented over the one in Florida and put something else there. Yeah, it's not there at all anymore. So,
unfortunately, because it was, I mean, I do think it's classic Disney.
It's classic Disney. It was just not well thought out as far as lines and ride times and loading and unloading and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think the mechanics of the ride itself didn't work for them. I mean, as far as line placement and queue lines and waiting and all of that.
And you know that when it first opened out in California, they had live women playing mermaids.
Yes. Yep.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Oh, I looked up the thing. Robert Mattey, Mattey. Robert Mattey was a technician, a designer, and a special effects artist who worked on 20,000 Leagues, Mary Poppins, several others, and ended up working with Joe Alves, who was really the designer of Bruce.
And he was used to doing these things in fresh water and didn't realize they were going to use it in salt water. So that means that 20,000 Leagues was filmed in freshwater, probably.
Well, the squid scene was, yes, that was in the studio.
Yeah, actually, I think that might have been one of the 20th Century Fox things. I think they had to use their pond or whatever you call it.
It was in
the water stage. Yeah. I have a few others. Actually, maybe I don't. No, yeah, I do. Well, we mentioned some of the television shows, like whatever that Erwin Allen is that I can't seem to remember the title of. But one thing I noticed, I did not know this. You probably knew this. There is a Star Trek key. Did you know that?
No.
The Rura Penth.
Oh,
Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, Rurapente is the
Or
Klingon
Pente.
penal colony. Yeah.
It was a prison planet in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, and
Yeah.
it is one of the places they refer to in the movie. It's one of the islands.
Well, that's where he takes him aboard to show him the slavers. That's where he
Right.
takes him to the island to see the slavers.
So they borrowed that term for their prison planet.
Rurapente. Yeah.
Rurapente.
Yeah.
So
It
I thought that
actually
was kind of
comes up in, it's actually mentioned later on too in a couple of other Star Trek movies and also in Enterprise, the series Enterprise. It mentions Rurapente. So,
well, science fiction runs deep.
It does.
Oh no! Here's my other one. Damn it! I mean, I knew I had another one. Submarine movies. Other than Fantastic Voyage, you could also bring up anything to do with a submarine, like Run Silent, Run Deep, or The Hunt for Red October.
You could, just because there's submarine stuff in it, but yeah.
Well, I mean, the submarine plays a major part in the movie, in all of them.
Yeah. Crimson Tide, that's another great one.
Correct.
I love submarine movies.
Do
well, I have one last one, which is, I think it started as a graphic novel, but they did do a movie version of it that Sean Connery was in, which was called League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Correct.
And
it was a graphic novel or comic.
Captain Nemo is in that, and they're on the Nautilus, although their production design was nowhere near this and are very good. It was all a big chrome silver square ship. It looked stupid. But
I never saw that movie.
It's got some okay stuff to it and some other stuff that you go, really? The Wolfman is working with Captain Nemo? Okay, cool. Whatever.
I think it's really weird when they do that. Let's pluck all these characters out of classic literature and team them up.
Yeah. Let's team them up. Yeah.
It's
so
weird.
it didn't work overall, but it had some interesting concepts, I think. We used to play a role-playing game called Space 1889, which was basically based on the concept that Jules Verne and H.G. Wells weren't writing fiction. They were just recording what was happening. So all of that in the world was true. And by the late 19th century, so by 1890, 1895, Mars, Venus, and parts of some of the moons of Saturn had been colonized by steampunk sort of spaceships and everything else. It's really cool. So you've got all these British guys going, well, I got this when I was in Mars, on Mars. I got that, when the Martians.
You sound like Steve Rowe.
Yeah. It's a Rowie kind of, he played with us a few times. It was but it's that, it's got this gammy leg, but it was a great role-playing game based all on this cyberpunk sort of, steampunk sort of view of the world.
Right.
Yeah. So there you go. So I really recommend this movie. I like it a lot, and I think it is good science fiction. It is good Disney. It is a fun little ride in itself. You obviously don't favor it as much, but
I would recommend it. I think everyone should see it. I mean, I think that's why Dennis watched it the other night, but I could tell he was tuning out.
Well, it just needs more blood and action, obviously.
No, actually, he's not into that at all. I mean, it's he won't watch scary things with me hardly at all. I'm trying to think what we watched. We watched the remake of Rebecca the other night on Netflix.
Yeah.
And he kept looking over at me like, is this going to get really scary? I'm like, no. I'm like, it was an Alfred Hitchcock movie. It's suspenseful, but not scary. Anyway. So yeah, no, I think everyone should see this movie. It's definitely a classic, and like I said, I appreciate it for nostalgic reasons more so than I do for the production itself. I guess that's just what I'm trying to say. Yep. So understood. I mean, it's got a lot going for it.
Yeah.
And some minor things that irritate me. Kirk Douglas being primary.
So go watch it, go enjoy it. Thank you all for listening to us again. We appreciate you guys so much. Please help spread the word. We'd love to get more people. So, give us a like, a star, subscribe, thank us, send us emails.
May I have some more?
Tell all your friends, please come back. Next week we'll be doing, I'm sure, something from Tim's world of darkness.
Actually, yes, we will be going into a ghostly place.
Ghostly places. So.
Like my ghostly place. Well, actually, we're going to do 2 ghost ones in a row. How about that?
No way.
Not in a row. Well, it'd be like my ghost, then your thing, then my ghost again.
Okay. Okay, so now all of you guys listening or watching us, you know where to find us again.
Yeah.
So come back.
Get your ghost on.
Tim, good seeing you again.
You too.
All right. Talk to you next
later.
time. Bye.
Bye.
You can't start the car. Johnny has the key.